All right. Welcome, everyone. I apologize that we are 3 minutes late. I am to blame for that,
Mm.
as getting the hosting duties prepared here on the back end. So I apologize if you're somebody who is watching this live, but if you're somebody that's listening, you are none the wiser because this just came out whenever it came out. So thank you for being here. Thanks for listening. And today we have an interesting follow up to something that we had done thematically some episodes back. I want to say maybe five, where we looked at the Edge. I don't know his real name, otherwise, I would have used it right then. But let's just
It's
call him
probably
the
Bob.
Edge. Yeah. And
Yep.
I think it is something like that, like Bob Evans or something, something like that. And taking that sort of framework of like how to get somebody's tone in sort of the fewest pedals possible, and then sort of transplant that to John Mayer, who is also, whether you like him or not, and I can already see the comments right now about people that don't like him. And I wonder whether this is maybe more of a personality clash than I don't think you can objectively look at him play guitar and be like, this guy really sucks at guitar. And if you do, then I think that there's other hurdles that we need to talk about. But nevertheless, objectively, one of the most popular guitar players of the last 30 years, 20 years at least, and many people desire elements of his sound. And so we're going to talk about what those elements might be. Of course, there is a spoiler alert called the YouTube thumbnail that sort of gives away some of these picks that we're going to talk about. But I think not only are we going to explore those picks, but what will be interesting is to hear maybe some alternatives. If you don't want to go with the real thing, the exact thing that John Mayer has, what could be pivots that you could make if you wanted to spend a little less money? Or if you wanted to spend a little more money and get something really boutique, or maybe you want to get the actual thing itself that he uses, which some people go as far as to do that. So I think that there are some interesting discussions to be had. Also, I realized that we've been remiss in checking back in on some of the comments that come in on the Chairman of the Board's Facebook page, which is become a wonderful, just blossoming place. I've been using that word a lot because somebody had told me, instead of telling me that I got fat, they told me I had really blossomed. And I thought that was such a great euphemism to say to somebody
What a PC
instead of
way of
just
saying it.
calling them that.
Wow.
You've really blossomed this season. And I was like, thank you. That felt
My
a lot
the
better.
thing I like about it is it can be interpreted. It can be interpreted many different ways. Like, is he talking about my personality? What are we? And you can just kind of skirt. You can skirt the issue, which
Gosh.
is it's dear to my heart as a Canadian. I love skirting issues.
Yes.
That's
And,
great.
and so we have a blossoming a Facebook group that has continued to grow, and it's replete with individuals that know and have listened to many of these podcasts and know a lot of the best practices that we talk about. And I'm impressed with the quality of responses and how curated they are. So I think if you're into what we're talking about, you're really going to like the Facebook group. If you're not an anti-Facebook person, I think it's great. And so we'll take some questions that have come in there, and then of course stuff that comes in the chat. But just to start, let's calibrate everybody as to where we are with sort of just our sort of John Mayer baseline, kind of what our starting knowledge is, what we think about the tones. Where do you guys sit on the John Mayer spectrum? I already see that we've got some polarized opinions in the commentary. Where are you, Brian? Are you anti-Mayer? Are you anti-Mayer, or are you Uncle
No,
Mayer?
no, I'm definitely Uncle Mayor. No, I'm a big fan of him. I mean, I obviously I cannot play close to how he plays or anything, but I appreciate and I admire the talent he has and the energy he puts into it. I told the story a while back. I had the opportunity to sit in on a sound check I know you've had plenty of opportunities to do the same, and um, we got to sit and watch and just like kind of hear the band like run everything over, and he came out and working on like a new one of his new songs, "Carry Me Away," and they're like, "Well, we don't know if we're gonna do it. How's everyone feel?" And like he was like asking everyone, and I was like, "Well, it's I like just like listening to his mind. Oh no, I would rather you do this." Like it was that was really cool to hear, and then just like I mean, hearing him live is such a fun thing. So, but yeah, no, his tone is great. Obviously, he loves pedals. He has a huge selection of pedals, as well as now with the plugin and stuff, which is really really cool. So I think it's just cool to see like even someone like him, who has said like modelers are not all the way there yet. The literally be posting videos like that he didn't know the difference, like he couldn't tell the difference just by like the real stuff versus his plugin, which was really cool to hear. So but no, I'm definitely Uncle Mayor for sure. What about you, Grant?
Auntie or
Unlike
Uncle
Brian,
Mayor?
I am I'm glass half full mayor. Unlike Brian, I can play just like him, but I
Wow.
choke. I choke really
Oh.
easily, so no one's ever seen it happen. But I'm just gonna have to get you guys to trust me on this one. I'm really good when no one's watching. So I feel like me and John Mayer are pretty tight. Uh, yeah, no, he's good. I've been listening to John Mayer. I would say I wouldn't say religiously, but consistently since high school, and that was a long time ago. Since oh man, Body is
What,
a
a couple
Wonderland.
decades?
You know what I mean? Like
Mm,
way back in the day.
mm,
And then I still remember seeing Trio and Live, like where he does whatever that DVD was, and it
yeah,
was on DVD, where he
where the
did
light
all
is.
three facets of Mayer.
Where the
That's
Yeah.
it,
light
where
is,
the
yeah.
light is. And I just was blown away. I just remember that, watching all these, and he was arrogant as anything in that one. And I think he's a self-proclaimed recovering. I don't know. I can't remember the word he used, but he's
Arrogant
maybe
holic.
maybe less arrogant than he once was. Maybe wisdom has come with age. But man, I've always been impressed. That was a highlight for me, seeing where the light is, and then from there, I kind of, I don't think he's the perfect guitar player by any means, but I really appreciate what he does and what he brings to our
Yeah.
industry. I mean, you can't ignore the guy. Love him or hate him, you cannot ignore him, and the influence that he brings. And so, yeah, I am pro John Mayer, his skills, and yeah, yeah, I'm excited to chat about it today.
And I don't think I need to say anything. I think I did a count when I was doing the Neural DSP launch video thing. I think we've done over 25 and somehow related to John Mayer content videos on the Vertex YouTube channel. So there's been quite a bit.
And it's still not enough, Mason.
It's still not enough. We need,
Yeah,
yeah. How many do we need? Is one
still not
more
enough.
is the answer. And so
Yes.
we're going to continue. And I think the first time I saw him, it was even. I think that song had been written, but Room for Squares wasn't out yet. So this was 2001. So that meant I would have been, how old? I've been 16. I remember you needed to have a adult, I think it was an over 18, maybe even over 21 escort to go to where I saw him at a place in San Francisco. It doesn't exist anymore, called Slim's. And you could go to Slim's, I think, with an over 18 or over 21 escort. I don't remember. I remember actually seeing even David Ryan Harris there around that same time,
Nice.
who ultimately was in his band. Um, and Yeah, and I remember John Mayer and the people. I found a picture of that concert, not that I had, but I found somebody who had like an old photo bucket like account that had a photo from that night at that venue that I used in my neural launch video. And I remember he was playing a Vibro King, which is not that uncommonly known. Most people who followed him for a while knew that he used Vibro Kings. But the more interesting thing is that he had a hardtail Robert Cray custom shop Strat. And I don't know that I've actually seen it show up that many times, and I had kind of forgotten about that he had one because I remember I went to look for one. There was a guitar shop not that far from where Slim's was, maybe, I don't know, 15 miles away, called E-Guitars. Doesn't exist anymore, but they had kind of vintage and new guitars and used stuff, and they had a custom shop Robert Cray Strat just like that, same color, kind of like a purplish navy blue and gold hardware. And I remember I got the guy down to like $1,200 for this custom shop Strat, and then I came back to buy it the next day, and it was gone. And it was heartbreaking.
No.
It was heartbreaking. And the guy that I know who worked there at the
Heartbreak
time,
warfare.
yeah, his name is Dave Sampson. He works at a great guitar store in Petaluma now called Tall Toad Music, and he still remembers, this. He's like, oh, he's like, I was so bummed for you, and I told my boss that you were going to buy it, and anyway. So that's a
I don't know
lot.
if you can. I was just going to say, I don't confirm or deny. I mean, this story related. I've actually heard it fine since quite extensively here. Really come into its own. Was that the word you used earlier? You were accused
Blossomed.
of flourishing yourself.
No, blossomed.
Blossomed. Oh, I
Blossomed.
ruined it. I'm so sorry, man.
No.
So have you ever come across a similar hardtail since, or was it the one that got away and now
I
is,
wonder what I would
because
think of it
it's
now.
not a super common one, right?
No, the Robert Cray stuff is not that common. The Mexican made ones are much more common, but they have custom shop versions that float around, and I think they're either in, I forget the color, midnight purple. Maybe somebody can look it up and put it in the chat. But they used to have this purple version. All of them had gold hardware, and then I think they have another one that's Inca silver that also has gold hardware. But all hardtails, you don't see them often. I don't know how I would think of it. There's a lot of gear that I thought was amazing back then, and then I come back to it, and I was like, I don't really, I wouldn't use it now. Let me put it that way.
Maybe it's a good thing.
Yeah, so it could have been
So
like
if
a
you came across
mediocre
it again
guitar.
today,
Yeah, I don't know. So guitar specific, right? I don't know. But in my
the thing I
head,
was
I was very upset.
realizing the thing I was realizing as well, because I was doing a bit of prep for the episode, because I'd still have, on every topic, lots to learn. And so I was just trying to think, oh, am I forgetting any Mayer pedals? And so you look at videos and blogs and all this stuff. And the thing that I am reminded of about Mayer, which we'll probably get into today, is, and Brian hinted at this, like this guy he loves guitar gear just as much as any other guitar player. And he has the ability to obviously purchase whatever he wants. I mean, this guy probably loses guitar. I lose guitar picks. He's probably just got so much of this stuff, but
he finds them in
loves
between
gear.
his couch
Like
cushions.
He's got so much stuff.
Is he finding
Yeah,
guitars in his
exactly.
washer
Oh,
and
that's
his
where that
dryer?
one went. And doing laundry, and he has to empty them out of his pockets, and but he's always experimenting. That was kind of the consistent thing across these videos I was watching and things I was reading, is just seems to really love it, which I really enjoyed seeing. He's always experimenting, trying a new pedal, trying a new, where he could very easily just be, this is the gear I love, and it's been roughly the same for 10 years, and he just keeps writing great music. But he seems to really enjoy the creative process, both in the writing and in the gear that helps him change his palette and get there, which I was really appreciative of, because I'm not a professional guitar player, far from it, but I still go to the things I know and love, and I struggle to challenge myself in new areas when it comes to guitar pedals sometimes. And so it was a cool reminder.
I think that's another thing too. I was just remembering back when the Born and Raised album came out. It was my girlfriend. She was my girlfriend. Now she's my wife. Obviously, at the time when we were dating, we went and saw the Born and Raised tour, and of course, I'm trying to zoom in up on the phone, like with my phone, and it's like the the lower iPhone, whatever at the time, whatever it was. So like the camera was not something stupid. Like it was like you couldn't zoom in close enough, and like you could never like see what the gear he was using. But what I realized is like obviously with Instagram, you have a lot more accessibility to see that kind of stuff. If they're posting photos, you can see stage photos. But like seeing him going from like the Bob Bradshaw, like Robert, like Brad truck and like using these controllers and these racks to a pedal train board with all these pedals. I feel like across the albums, maybe sub one or two out, he has some, like as they said, like we've been talking about these staple pedals, like
Hmm.
staple like pedals that he's always going to. Maybe I know he did this thing where he started blacking out all of his pedals because he didn't want like the price to shoot up and like because he's using it, so everyone's trying to like price gouge or whatever. But it's just interesting to see like a lot of his tones, like no matter what genre he changes from a trio to doing Born and Raised to doing his newer stuff, like it seems like a lot of these pedals kind of fit around what he's using. I mean, like I said, sub out a couple of them, but it was especially interesting when shoot, what was it? I'm trying to think. Oh, when he played the Coachella, wherever he played, where he did the neural thing, and he
Hmm.
just used the quad, and the amount of people that were like, "Oh my gosh, that's his tone and stuff," but then like you realize like that's obviously it was just the plugin and stuff. But I just think it's really cool that he's able to take all these pedals and put different sounds and stuff on it by stepping on the tube screamer for only this one little part and stepping off of it and going back to a cleaner part and like little stuff that you think, oh, how does he bend like that, like how does he bend the note to get that tone, and you're realizing he's kicking on an overdrive but no one's really noticing. But I think it's cool. He's definitely has that group of pedals that I'm excited to dive into because I already know a couple of them. I
Yeah.
don't know all of them, but I definitely know at least three of them.
Yeah. Well, why don't we start there? Because we've allowed our audience to marinate enough at this point. Let's get into it. So
Yeah.
maybe let's start at the guitar side. So guitar comes in. I'm sort of omitting tuner because I think that's sort of like a foregone conclusion that there's going to be a tuner. It shouldn't have too much of an impact on the overall tone. Now, historically, if you're looking at what I consider the best tone John Mayer had, I think Continuum is generally considered to be that era. Now, there's of course going to be people that argue this, but I think for the most part, if we're talking about classic John Mayer, I think that was definitely the era of great tone, which ironically was sort of before the Dumbles were really a part of things. The pedal choices were still much more abbreviated, um, from what we can tell. Right? It's not a perfect science. We can't know everything, but just looking at that era, it was more Boss TU2. And then as the TC
Hmm.
electronic polytune came into fashion, that then sort of replaced it at some point down the line. I don't think that this is a big tonal shift thing. It's just something to be named. I think that we can somewhat disregard that effect, though, as far as the tone element of John Mayer. I think the early on stage thing
Yeah.
um, has got to be the boost. And I think the Keeley Katana has, without a doubt, been one of the most long-standing pedals on his rig that you can trace back to the
Hmm.
very early days. And I don't know at what year it released. I think sometime in the early 2000s. The Keeley Katana has been there, and in particular, the version 1. We haven't seen really any updates to that as far as I'm aware. I'm sure that there's been revisions within the version 1, but it's still in that standard Hammond enclosure, the original font, whereas he
Hmm.
has upgraded and or got new versions of, say, like the Aquapus over time. The katana has
Yeah.
been the same version of the katana or within that same era of katanas from beginning to now. So I think that if you want to
Hmm.
get the Mayer boost sound and you want to go with a staple, I think it's fairly it is inarguable to say that anything else will really do. I think that that's got to be the pick. Are you guys in agreement with that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I would say if someone asked me what pedals John Mayer uses, the first one that pops into my head is the Katana. Like
Mm,
Uh-huh.
that is number one. And then I don't want to give away other ones that pop into my head,
mhm.
but
Mhm.
that would absolutely be up there. Which is I think in my mind too, again, his maybe approach to guitar, like it's a boost. It's the simplest pedal you could
One
have on your
knob.
board.
One
And
knob.
that is
Yep.
exactly
One
one knob and a foot switch.
Yeah.
And
And an LED.
so I think that just speaks to how he
And a
approaches.
jack.
Yeah, fair. And that's a tone monster. Those LEDs, man,
Yeah.
that changes things.
Yeah, it's
And
got the big
I think
bezel, the chrome one on the original katana. And those
exactly.
knob on the
people
side.
don't discount that. The blue LED.
It blinds
Give
the
me a
audience
break. Give
so
me a
they
break.
don't even know what you're playing.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is real.
Yeah.
This is real stuff we're talking about here.
Now, one thing
So
that's
Katana's
interesting,
way up there.
one thing that is interesting amongst the John Mayer fan base, especially in the gear fan base, is some of them do I see argue about versions of the katana and how different they are. But Robert Keeley swears that they are the same, irrespective of the version. So
Some Klon.
according to him, you can get the newest version, and it's exactly the same thing. So take it for what you will. I don't really I've never really used the katana for myself. I think it sounds great. I don't have any issue with it at all. I just never used one. Um, and I have seen the introduction of the exotic super clean has been used as a boost as well subsequently, sometimes also with the katana. So that could be a potential pivot if we're going to give some other alternative. Um, the katana is a pretty clean, linear sounding boost. So if you were going to really go cheap, although not approved as a John Mayer staple, this could also be a case for something like the TC Electronics Spark if you wanted to go really, really budget. Something like that. The single knob ones I think are pretty affordable and may sort of get you in the ballpark. I've never compared. I can't really say, but I'm just sort of thinking along those lines. But let's move into the next pedal food group. I think it's got to be overdrives, right? And I think that the most recognizable of those has to be the tube screamer. And there's been various tube screamers in the mix over time. There's been the TS-808s. I don't think there's been any TS-9s, but I think most famously or most popularly, the TS-10 has kind of been the main one that he's used a lot. And you've seen some of his multiple TS-10s or TS-10s that are on either side of another distortion overdrive that we're going to talk about, I'm sure, at some point. But are you in agreement with the tube screamer? And maybe it's just a generalized category as sort of a next kind of staple stage in the John Mayer rig. You guys in agreement with that?
Oh yeah.
I was watching a couple of videos. One of them from Anderton's JHS, which I've seen him both in the past. But basically, I think Anderton's quoted John Mayer. So quote of a quote may not be correct, but he basically said, if it's green, I can make it sound good. That was on Anderton's. And then JHS doing a video. JHS doing a video on the John Mayer Paradox, which I'm sure you guys have seen at some point, of he can play his gigantic Bradshaw rig or his little pedal train, and he's going to sound like John Mayer. And there's some of these staples that we're talking about today on both of these boards, but the idea being of, like, you can get into like, oh, this katana sounds better from 2003 versus this one from 14. You could argue that all day long, but John Mayer plays through either one of those or variations, and he's gonna sound like John Mayer. It's unavoidable. And so I think that's where, like on today's episode, this will get you most of the way there, and then studying his technique, his approach, how he runs guitar into amp, all that type of stuff is really going to be a big portion of sound. And so, yeah, absolutely. TS10 in my mind is quintessential John Mayer, but I personally would be just as happy with an 808 or a TS9 and then just trying to dial in amp, guitar, pedal a little bit and tweak from there. And I know I'll get very close. And I'll blame everything else on my lack of skill and technique after that.
No, I'm in agreement. I as we have talked in the past, I'm not the biggest tube fan, but it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah.
And,
John Mayer himself popped into the chat and said, "Brian, come on, man. Would you give it a fair shot for the next few weeks?"
Yeah, I mean, I think I have in the past. I feel like I've used a couple pedals without really knowing, especially with the quad cortex. There's some of those names that are, not always the exact name of the pedal. So I've definitely, I think in the past used a couple. I think it really just comes down to like some tubes sound really good with some amp sims and some just don't. I just don't think they sound exactly the same. I think that's running amps loud. People are like, oh, I can get any tube screamer to sound great, but I really do think it's especially in my case, just doing amp sims for everything. Sometimes they just don't sound that great, or they just don't sound that great in ears. I think that's like a big thing too, because so much stuff nowadays is in your monitors is like it just doesn't sound right, and I'm like, oh, it sounds really good out there. I'm like, yeah, that's fine. It sounds good out there. That's good, but like doesn't feel good to me.
Mm.
So I always end up swapping it for something else that probably ends up being a tube screamer anyways without me realizing it.
It's all in the head. Placebo.
Always
We'll just get you
happens.
a blue tube screamer, and then you'll be so happy with it.
Perfect.
Yeah.
We're good. What do you guys know what the daily driver is? Side note.
I don't
Do you
Not off
know?
the
Are
top
you
of my head.
familiar? I'll have
I
to
don't know
Google
what it's
that one.
based on.
I've been using, and I honestly wouldn't be surprised if it was a tube screamer. Anyways, yeah, no, definitely tube screamer. I agree with you.
Yeah,
I'm
and I
just trying to
think
look it up right now to see if it's
and I
is.
think that tube screamers, I'm in agreement with that. I haven't said that exact quote, but I've said versions of that. That the variation between tube screamer to tube screamer are pretty minimal, even amongst
Yeah.
TS9, TS10, TS808. The TS10 is maybe the most remarkable shift because of the input impedance being much higher than a normal tube screamer, being with
Mm-hmm.
470K, or yeah, 470K, yeah. And and I think that the TS10 is closer to 1 meg or is 1 meg, but the difference there would only be, I think, that obvious if it was first, if that was what was loading the guitar. If it's coming later in the chain, there's already been so many. The guitar's already been loaded by that point, and there's already been all sorts of impedance changes already. So I don't know that
Yeah.
it would be as critical at that point unless you were running it first or running it by itself. Um,
Yeah.
so I find that whether it's a cheap Tube Screamer Mini, which I've used on some small compact boards, or variations of a Tube Screamer kind of clone, I can kind of get them all to do the thing that I want them to do, and so I'm in agreement with that. As most of them can sound pretty great, and there are so many choices. I don't even think I could name 10% of them right now. I think at this point, Tube Screamer circuits are
Yeah.
fairly known. Find a good one that you like that's the right size for you. And I think if you can't get it in the zone, it is not the pedal. Um, I think honorable mentions here too, and you can see this sort of just borne out in the plugin, is the Blues Breaker was the other circuit that is featured as sort of the choice that he
Mm,
would gravitate towards, and that's also covering sort of a mid-range overdrive sound. And luckily, there's also just so many Blues Breaker style effects out there. Whether you're talking about, Marshall just reissued the original Blues Breaker, and it sounds dead on. There are, Brown Amplification does a version of it. Warm Audio now has a version of it. I mean, there's so many versions.
mm-hmm.
And, of course, the King of Tone with Analog Man, the MXR collaboration. There's so many options of a blues breaker. JHS, the Morning Glory. So lots of stuff that you could pick from there, I think, as alternatives. Um, Another
Yeah.
big
Absolutely.
one that I think has to be named is, of course, the Klon Centaur. And that's
Oh
also
yes.
been a staple for quite a long time and gets used in conjunction with the tube screamer. I think that there's a if I think that before the Klon was really prominent, I guess the other one that was there with the tube screamer would have been the Blues Driver, the Keeley modded Blues Driver with the Fat mod. Um, but that kind of seemed to fizzle out by the mid 2000s, and then the Klon was definitely kind of there to stay. Are you guys in agreement with the Klon as sort of the next kind of big important pedal as part of that kind of overdrive sound?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. Those three, the
Absolutely.
TS10, Blues Breaker, Klon, are quintessential John Mayer. The thing though, I don't know if we'll get into it, but we're in this section of the pedal board. I think is really worth mentioning is the fact that, and correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but the fact that from what I can tell, he tends to like running his katana into his overdrives
yeah,
rather than his overdrives Katana, which makes a huge difference on the
Huge
sound and
difference.
approach
Yeah.
to what he's getting. So when he turns that Katana on, he's going to get more saturation, more overdrive, more clipping out of the overdrives that are on. And I mean, I think we've probably all done videos on this at some point. It's just such a big difference, and so that is a big point if you're trying to get John Mayer type sounds, is getting the order correct,
Yeah.
especially with that boost.
Yeah.
And
Oh yeah, that make a
yeah,
huge difference. That
yeah,
makes the whole pedal react. Like I've had people all the time like, I'll just throw it in wherever. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. Like
no.
putting the boost before or after will drastically change how the overdrive reacts. It's the same thing with like compression too. Like a lot of these pedals, people like some like before, some like after. So yeah, it's definitely, there's the method to the badness kind of thing. Like he has that certain like signal chain or whatever, on how he likes, because he knows how they will react, which I think is very smart.
Yeah. Now, pedals that you would recommend if you were not going to get an original Klon, and in fact, I think even in the thumbnail, we don't have an original Klon picture because you can't really even get them. I think what's pictured there is the Warm Audio Centavo. There are, of course, many other options. Why don't you guys
Centaur.
describe some of the possible picks that somebody might go for out there if they're interested in getting a Klon style of overdrive effect?
I mean, off the bat, Archer, Centaur, how do you say
Centura,
it?
yep.
Looks just like the Klon. Um, and the KTR. I mean, those are the three for me that I think of
Mm-hmm.
pretty much off the
Grant,
bat.
any others to
and of
add?
course I'm gonna I'm gonna blank on the name, so I'm trying to look it up. The EHX's version is really liked as
Oh,
well.
the
It's
Soul Food,
Oh,
Soul Food.
Soul Food, yep.
So EHX Soul Food is good, but I
oh
would
yeah.
say Tumnus. Thank you in the chat for Mateo. Tumnus is a good one as well, and a lot of these companies have a larger version and a mini version these days as well. So you can find some pretty small
Mm-hmm.
clones, but just about, and tell me if this is a stretch, but just about any company that makes overdrives will make a clone. Like
Oh yeah.
it's just that common. So if you have a company that you just really seem to vibe with, you really like, just look up what does XY company's clone, what's it called? And you'll probably get an overdrive pop up, and you can
Yep,
start researching more from there.
yep,
But yeah, so many, so
yep,
many clones out there
yep.
for a
Well,
good
like
price too.
JHS used to make a clone, and they stopped making them because Josh had told Bill Finnegan. What was that his last name?
Yep.
Bill? Yeah.
Bill, Mr. Klon, that basically like if he was to release them back, he release them out again, they would stop. But I had a couple people have the JHS one, which was I thought really accurate.
Was the
Um,
Nauticlon being their most recent?
oh yeah, I forgot about the Nauticlon.
Yeah.
I actually forgot
Mm.
about that one. That's a fun one. That whole you know how many ever they sold 50,000 plus
Mm.
units or whatever. It was absolutely. I mean, for
So
the
crazy.
price, I mean, it
Yeah,
makes sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that's crazy.
yeah. All right, so I think we've tackled a few. I think that we're kind of now getting to the back half of the pedal board as far as stuff that is less in the overdrive terrain and maybe more in the sort of modulation, delay, reverb space. Before we go into that, I want to break
Yeah.
very quickly to talk about a few sponsors that make these podcasts possible. The fact that we are all in this chat together and we are having the conversation, whether you're listening on iTunes or you're watching on YouTube, this is made possible by them. And first off is our friends over at the Guitar Sanctuary. Now, many of the pedals that we've talked about already today are available from our friends at the Guitar Sanctuary. And if you, in fact, are interested in checking some of them out, by buying a pedal from them, you are in turn supporting us. So head over to theguitarsanctuary.com. You can look them up online and purchase directly there. Or if you find yourself in the Dallas-Fort Worth area and you'd like to visit a place that has incredible gear and knowledgeable staff, look no further than the Guitar Sanctuary. They would be happy to help. And tell them the chairman sent you. Also, Our friends over at Neural DSP, speaking of John Mayer, have released a brand new John Mayer plugin called the Archetype John Mayer X, and it essentially is a snapshot of his entire rig, from the guitar cable that leaves his instrument to the microphone and entire mixing console that comes after the mic'd amplifier. It is all baked into the tone. All of the core elements are there, which may just make this whole podcast completely irrelevant because you can just go and buy that. But they are offering our listeners a special discount code for every plugin that is 90 days or older. So we're not quite at that 90-day threshold, since I think it's only been out a week. But in 90 days, you will be able to, or 90 days minus a week, you will be able to purchase that John Mayer plugin for 30% off using the coupon code Chairmen, CHAIRMEN. Enter that at checkout and you will receive 30% off. In the meantime, you can check out some of their other available plugins. I love the Soldano SLO one, and there are many other great ones that you can check out. Corey Wong, another one that I really like. So many good ones to check out, so please do that. Lastly, our friends over at Bestronix, the supplier of many of our plugs, cables, all the things you need to build a pedal board are available from our friends over at Bestronix. Head over to Bestronix and you can search their entire library of everything you'd possibly need. And if you can't find what you want, contact Brad at BTPA and he can help you find whatever part number it is that you want, and we'll get it to you very, very quickly. Best in the business, a staple amongst rig builders. Highly recommend. And they give our listeners 10% off using the coupon code DUTCHAIRS, DACHAIRS, playing off the old SNL skit about the Bears, given that they are in a Chicago suburb of Tinley Park. So check them out. They will all be linked in the description. Now let's get back to some of these pedals. So I put on the thumbnail the chorus pedal, the CE2, because that's become a recent staple, although I don't know that it would be a long-time staple. If, for example, it is not included as one of the pedals that is in the John Mayer Archetype plugin. But I feel like a lot of the stuff that is sort of more Clapton-esque, especially sort of the 80s Clapton sound, very much utilizes the CE2 as part of that sound, as Eric Clapton did on Journeyman and Behind the Sun and those sorts of records. So I think that if you want to do some of those kind of more contemporary, more Clapton-leaning John Mayer style sounds, certainly the CE2 is an important element to that. And I don't think there's a better one out there than what Boss is doing with the Wazacraft version that gives you the CE1 sound, gives you the CE2 sound, and even gives you the option to run it in stereo, even though the original CE2 was never available in stereo. Where do you guys fall on that? Because this is kind of a controversial pick. You could also make an argument for the Qtron here in this position on the pedal board as well, because it's something that has been a staple on his rig. And I wondered if that was catering more to the Grateful Dead folks, because those are a lot of the fans of John Mayer who have become a lot of fans of John Mayer in recent years since he's been involved with Dead & Co. What are your guys' thoughts on that? Was the chorus the wrong pick here as a staple, or should we have gone Qtron or some other sort of envelope filter?
I was going Qtron in my head for next in line, but chorus absolutely fits into a John Mayer sound, in my opinion. The other thing, though, that I was tossing up, and this might just be past bias coming through, but was the Roger Lynn Adrenaline being one of the ones that, in my mind, in the earlier years especially, into battle studies as well,
Bigger than my body.
Quite a bit. And indeed, indeed. That's couldn't have put it better myself.
That wasn't a blossoming joke either.
I was trying to get there, but I didn't want to, shoot this one to death. So yeah, the Adrenaline being another one that is kind of like a filter, multi-effects kind of unit. And by the way, I was looking this up before. I was like, how much would it be to get an Adrenaline these days, now that it's less popular on his rig? I don't believe he's using one anymore. And $400 Canadian on Reverb, which is basically $10 American these days. You can get them pretty cheap. And
Yeah.
so if you are interested in earlier John Mayer, picking up one of those could be a pretty good way
Hmm.
to get there as well. But yeah, any of those in my mind were kind of next. I wouldn't have picked chorus though without your prompting, but I think Qtron in my mind was next up.
What about you, Brian? Are you a Qtron here or are you a chorus here?
It's a big pick.
I think it's more chorus for me personally.
More chorus, okay. All right.
I feel like we're in a fantasy football league. Not that I know what that feels like, but like, what's your next pick? And deal like you don't want to get this wrong, you know?
No, I mean I've never really. I mean, yeah, I've messed with the Qtron, like a Qtron myself, but for like, I don't know. I mean, chorus is just one of those things that could be subtle. There are things to say, yeah, the Qtron. I don't know. That's a hard pick. I want to say chorus, but I feel like it's not. I mean, it's the same thing with the Qtron. It's not for every single song.
Yeah.
But it's pretty quintessential John Mayer.
I know,
but I think only a quintessential for the Dead stuff. It's not that used for John Mayer stuff, and so I guess that may be the hair that needs to be split. Is, are we talking about general John Mayer, all the things he does?
Yeah.
Or are we talking about John Mayer's music specific? Yeah, this is a hard question. So there could be a case to be made in either way, and I love the involvement of fantasy football. You know, we work that in. I should say that while I was in Chicago the other week, we were watching Monday Night Football. We had some trivia going on there, and I was the only guy in that entire Chicago bar full of all Chicago Bear football fans that got this question. I'm curious if anybody who's a football fan gets this. It was name 2 running backs in the 1990s that won MVPs their names start with the first letter. I was the only guy that got it. It was Terrell Davis and Thurman Thomas. And so I was impressed with them. I was feeling myself that day, I'll say that. So you can tell me I blossomed all you want.
On what type of football? Yeah, that's impressive, man. That's impressive.
So that's the best I've ever done in football trivia. But there are very specific knowledge years in football that sort of are run into the mostly the 90s. But with that said, if we were going to go Qtron, there's not really a lot of I suppose you could get other sort of Mutron style things, and I think Behringer even makes some like Mutron ripoffs that are like cheap. They're all kind of huge. Cool one. I don't know how expensive they are, but Maxon had this AF9 that was pretty cool. That was just the Ibanez AF9. And that was kind of a cool filter pedal that was kind of Mutron-esque. Another cool one that kind of fell off was the one that Exotic was making called the Robotalk. Was really cool. And I don't think they make that anymore either. I guess there's just like not a big market anymore for envelope filters, but I don't really know what to recommend as alternatives there. But in chorus, CE2 is kind of a great deal for what it does. I really like it. I think it sounds great. I don't know if there's the chorus to get it analog. You can multi-effect it. But if you want the true analog stuff, you kind of got it. You kind of might have to bite the bullet on that CE2W. Any other pivots there you guys would recommend?
I like the I've talked about it before, the yellow MXR chorus.
Just the MXR chorus. Okay.
Yeah, and that one you can run in stereo as well. Have to run it at 18 volts, unfortunately, but that one is great. The Boss one's good. Those are the 2 ones that are standouts in my mind that I really liked, and both analog.
You're talking about recommendations. I don't have any recommendations for the Qtron stuff. But CE2.
Well, the EHX isn't that expensive. Like the Qtron stuff from EHX it's not the cheapest you'll find, but
they recently got very expensive. They got a lot more expensive with the tariffs. Really? Yeah, they did. And I don't know if that'll come back
Shoot.
down, but like I remember you used to be able to get a Qtron for like under $200, maybe like more like 160.
Yeah,
And then I looked recently, and they're like
that's where it
almost
is in my
three.
head.
They're like almost 300. Yeah. Um, I feel like
What?
unless I'm having some crazy brain fart, but I remember looking for one recently, and I was like, "Wow, this is incredible! This is like $300." Now it's like doubled in price. But anyway, maybe that was a fever dream that I had. What if
Currently,
we're
the Qtron Plus on EHX's website currently and is USA Street price 192.30.
interesting? Okay,
So
I feel like on
not
Sweetwater's
terrible.
website
Maybe they're just
recently it was a
bouncing all
lot
around.
more.
Okay.
Maybe I could be wrong. Could be
Yeah, I'm
wrong.
curious now.
While you're looking that up, let's go to the next one, which is delay. Now, there are multiple delays that have been used over time. I think of my favorite era was the Octopus in the T-Rex replica. T-Rex replica, of course, is no longer part of the conversation, and it's more like Octopus and Providence Chrono Delay. The Delay 80s has also been part of that. But I think that those have kind of been the two longest standing, and we've seen different versions of the Octopus hang in there, not just the Octopus version one. Um, I think the Octopus has to be in this conversation because there's always that slapback that's just on everything. It's just on all the time. It's on everything. It is a very important piece to kind of creating that space that is part of the tone, and that's kind of undeniable. I don't know that there's any workaround to that. Are you guys kind of in agreement that the slapback has to be there? I think almost more important than the longer delay.
Yeah.
Ooh,
Yeah.
hot take. Yeah. No, I mean that tracks in my head. You don't hear many delay based, as in long delay based John Mayer guitar parts that
Mm.
beef out the part or anything like that. Um, yeah, and for those curious, the Octopus is an analog delay,
Uh,
and yeah, great
I thought you
slap.
were going to
Would
define
you? And this
what
is
Aquapus is, because I've actually never. I always thought it
nope,
was like
not going there.
a waterboarded cat, but
Yeah,
nobody
let's go with
knows.
that. Yeah, I like that. That's friendly. Yeah. There's a lot of explanations for the names of guitar pedals in the music industry, similar to what you just said, Mace. I
Especially
like that
in the way huge model names. They are
lineup.
very
Yeah.
adventurous. Is a
Yep.
nice euphemism. Um, but it's basically a DM2, and that was kind of something
Yeah.
that George Tripp's was at the time was not a common thing. That he started coming out with these in the mid '90s. The original Boss analog delays were kind of already out of fashion, and he was basically creating boutique replicas of sort of like staple pedals that were sort of instrumental in 70s and 80s music, and kind of trying to make them better and more robust and like true bypass and stuff like that. And this is basically what the Octopus was. It was his DM2, used the same Bucket Brigade chips as you would find in the Boss DM2.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah.
and they weren't that expensive, at the time. I remember seeing them in LA as a kid, and kind of think, oh, these kind of look cool, and they have these cool names like Camel Toe and
Yeah.
things like that, and they were in these cool like anodized enclosures, and nobody was really doing that. Yeah, I think that they're really cool. But I think you could very easily get a DM2. You could get a carbon copy, which I think he was also involved on the design side with. That would be a really
Yeah.
easy pivot to kind of get something similar. But honestly, most sort of analog delays from that time period are kind of around 300 milliseconds or so. They're going to kind of get you in that terrain and kind of do the thing pretty easily, I think. Um,
Yeah.
Yep.
so I don't think there's anything else to say there. I think that that's more important, in my opinion, to the sound than the longer delay. As much as I love a Providence chrono delay, I think that the DM2 analog delay sound that the Octopus provides is kind of more important to kind of have that slapback. Um, the last piece I think that's really critical is sort of the reverb tremolo, and I think that the one that we see that exemplifies that on his rig that's been fairly consistent has been the Strymon Flint. And I think
Flints,
on
yeah.
two fronts, when the Victoria Reverberato, which is a reverb tank and tremolo tank that sits on top of the amp, I should say reverb tank and tremolo unit. I think that that's used for a lot of stuff, including gravity, and I think that that was kind of proven out in the plugin, which basically has a Victoria Reverberato like page that you can adjust the type of tremolo and reverb and stuff like that that's going into the front of the amp. I think that the Flint serves some of those duties when that's not used because it has a lot of those same effects as far as like the harmonic trem and stuff like that. And it also serves to do the reverb sound that may not be covered by the amplifiers if the amplifier is being used for reverb or has built in reverb. And I think that that's kind of like
Yeah.
a really important thing too, to be able to get the right sort of reverb sound. If you're playing gravity, you're going to need the right type of tremolo sound in order to do that. And that kind of solves that whole problem. And I think that that's why you see it fairly regularly on the pedal board. It's just a great utility pedal, and also it's just used by. I mean, outside of him, it's just such a pervasive pedal. Are you guys in agreement
Yeah.
with the Flint? And how the heck do you replace that? I don't think there's even a single pedal you can really do all that stuff with.
Does Keeley not have one? Do
Does
they
he
have
have does he have
a
a
reverb
tremolo?
trim?
Oh, you know what?
Hydra.
Yeah,
Hydra.
I guess no, that wasn't there
Yeah.
one recently that he came out with. It's not a Hydra that is like a reverb and tremolo. It's like there were a lot of people that would try to make the case that this was like kind of like the Flint killer. I can't remember what it was
Yeah,
called.
I'd need
Maybe
to do
somebody in
some
the chat.
research. But in
It
my
was
mind, I have like a
it was recent.
Keeley in my head for,
It was very
yeah,
recent, and it was like a reverb and
Oh,
tremolo.
the Zoma.
Zoma, that's it.
Yeah, Zoma.
Yeah,
reverb
Yeah,
and trim.
stereo reverb and trem. Yeah,
yeah,
it's yeah.
yeah.
Good
But yeah, I mean
catch.
the Flint has just been on there for so many iterations,
Yeah.
and
In
yeah,
in
the
New
thing
Neighbor
the
So
stuff too
good.
thing
has
I
been
do
on there
love
a long
about
time.
this, which stuff?
New Neighbor.
New neighbor.
Yeah, I think the cool thing though, and he's had so many iterations of pedal boards, obviously, so this won't apply to everything, but he seems, and this is more speaking to the calls I usually have during the week talking through people's rigs. This guy can have anything he wants, any piece of gear, 10 times over, not a problem. He can do it. But he plays these tours sometimes, not every single tour, but he's comfortable playing on like a pedal train 2 size pedal board. No switcher, not necessarily MIDI, and he's hitting everything individually on the pedal board. And he's John Mayer. I mean, he can pull it off with a simple pedal board, and I think that's pretty fascinating. Where he could have everything programmed, he could have a satellite board on the side controlled by a tech. He can do all this, but it doesn't necessarily mean he does. And I think speaking
Yeah.
to simplicity in this instance is
Yeah,
pretty cool as well. That
yeah.
he doesn't have a monster board for every tour. He's tried it. He's gone away from it, gone back to it. But it's cool seeing that he can get away with the basics and pull off an amazing show.
Mm,
And I think that's pretty cool.
agreed.
Ooh.
Well, I'm wondering if maybe we can
All that to
spend.
say, Flint is good.
Flint is good, and I don't again I don't think other
Yeah.
than the Zoma I don't really have an all-in-one solution, for people. So I kind of think we kind of have to leave it at that. Unfortunately, for those that it's not an inexpensive pedal. So I'm sorry that we don't have some really like hip alternative to point you to. Just the Zoma that I think is around the same price. Um, but I think we should spend maybe our remaining time here, any questions that come up here in the chat, but also if we could pivot to the Facebook page and maybe curate a couple highlight questions there, if you guys are able to find it. I know Grant, you're far away from your computer, but Brian, I don't know how close you are to Facebook. Otherwise, I can do my best to do it to
Yeah.
make sure that we curate a few questions there. Um, One thing that when I last perused, and I can't attribute this to any particular person, but I know that it was something that I had seen coming up, which is something that we talked about a few times on the show, but I think is maybe worth just rehashing, is the challenge of the low profile power supplies and the attached brick and kind of what the best practices are as far as making it not take up additional space. Like I've seen, for example, where Brian sometimes will stack it. And what we're talking about, if you're not familiar
Mhm.
with what we mean, you'll get a walrus power supply, like a canvas, for example, or the mono power supply. Um, and it will be very compact, but then you'll have a separate brick that the AC comes into, that then that brick transmits a DC voltage into the input of the supply. And it sort of undoes the space saving elements because you have a brick that is larger in height or higher in height than the actual power supply itself. And so this person was like, I've seen you guys talk about this. How do you actually solve for this? And so that you're not increasing the footprint. And I think if it's something that's going underneath the pedal board, there really isn't a solve for it, because if you don't have the clearance for it, you just don't have the clearance for it. And that's all you can do. But I've seen Brian do things
Yeah.
where he stacks them. Um, are there other things that you guys have done as sort of workarounds to kind of try to at least stay within certain dimensions of the supply so that you don't have to get bigger?
I'll do the stacking like I showed. I've done, it's tall doing it that way. Like it just makes it much taller. A lot of times, if it doesn't fit under an aero board, which these bricks do, but if it was like anything a little bit slimmer, it wouldn't without putting. I don't like having to put extra feet on the bottom of those boards to make the board taller. Then it just kind of defeats the purpose. You start to have to get kind of creative. Like I have this one quad cortex board here that I'm finishing up, where you can see
Uh-huh.
that I have it on. So, and this is going PowerCon to 2 IECs. So one IEC is for the brick for the pedals,
Mm-hmm.
which is the tuner, and there's Express QC, and then the other IEC is coming to the Seymour Duncan power amp. But I had to get creative with just we had this dead space, so I was able to lay it out, do
Right.
a little bit of a loop it over on this side to get it off. But where it comes in handy is those fine folks over at Goodwood Audio have the right angle. If I can get it, the right angle EIAJ,
EIAJ.
however you, yeah, those right angle connectors wonderfully come in handy because, as you can see, that space is maybe that length is maybe 8 or 9 inches, where
Yeah.
this cable is significantly longer.
Yeah.
So being able to cut that down can help a lot of times. But sometimes it's just getting creative on where to place it so it's not like in the way, but not inconvenient.
But it but
So
but it is
I end
sort
up,
of like a deceptive thing, because you look at photos of some of
yeah,
these things and they don't display it with that consideration. And so you're like,
yes,
"Oh, I've
yeah.
solved my problem. But wait,
Maybe
I
it was
have to
by
figure out
accident, though,
what to do
Mason.
with this big brick." Any
Well, it's like
advice,
this.
Grant?
It's like their big one, the Power 8 or the Power 15. It's like, wow, this solves my issue. Even the mono stuff, like we were talking about.
Yeah.
Oh, cool, that solves the issue. But you still have the big old brick, like you have
Yeah.
to deal with. Like at that point, I'm buying myself a DC7 and an 8, like the
Mm,
8 Chalks 8, and I'm
mm,
connecting those together, and I'm running an IEC into the DC7, and I'm wiring it to a power con on the side with one cable.
yeah.
That's what I would be
Just
doing.
power supply makers.
It's just
Just
one of
give
those
us
things.
one. Just give us one with an IEC.
Just one,
Just one.
just one.
That's all we want.
Like if like just I don't know the design. I don't know. I've opened these up because I'm always curious. Like, I know that this has whatever you call it's inside. I don't know. I guess there's just like I would take a little bit longer. Which one is this? The HP power or whatever to add the brick into it. But I
But
don't
but
design
I'm
this, so
saying
I
you
don't
wouldn't even
really
need to
know.
do it on that. You would just do it. You would just like how Chalks chose one, and you could,
Yeah,
and not all of them have the IEC. They just chose one, and then you can expand it to a really big one like
yeah,
an 8, or a slightly bigger one in the 4, and you've got it all there. You don't need to have an
yeah.
IEC on every one. You just need to have it on one. Grant, any
Just
other
one.
tips on that before we move on to some of the other questions?
Yeah, I mean, we've done a few different things in the past, but I think with every board being so different, it's just being aware that that exists. And so in the past, we've done it with a junction top right and mounted this brick vertically against the front of the junction so the IEC can come in that way as well. If you have an angled board, it'll fit underneath no problem. A riser, you can mount it underneath the riser or in line with a D socket or facing out towards the audience. Like there's so many variables and options you can come
Put
up
in your
with.
pocket.
But the worst case, exactly, right in your front pocket. The radiation from that
Put it on your purse.
But I think the biggest mistake is realizing that it doesn't exist. You've planned your whole layout, it's pretty tight, and now you're just stuck on where to put it. Like that's the worst thing that can happen. So I think just knowing knowing that this big brick is with that power is the first hurdle, and then you can go from there. But we've had a couple boards. I think Chippo did a couple of them in Australia, and he didn't initially when these supplies first came out that this brick was coming, planned it all against the specs on the website, and then this much taller brick comes in. What am I supposed to do with this thing? Like, you know, it's I don't know where this is supposed to go. And he figured it out, but it was frustrating at the time. And so I think that's where we're all
he
learning
supplies them with
as
a
this
fanny
stuff comes
pack
out.
that comes with their pedalboard.
Yeah, exactly.
Their IEC fanny pack.
I think exactly. I did.
Bum bag, Mason. Bum bag.
Well, even the gig rig, Daniel, they did the Gen X 14 or whatever power supply.
Yep.
Andy has one on his board, and it's like what's crazy enough, it's like a DC7 size power supply. Like it's almost the same size as that, but it still requires their generator brick on the side. So same circumstance. And like a lot of times I'll find stuff like this, like I'll try to zoom in so y'all can see it. These like
the risers. Yep.
I'm gonna have to describe it.
Yeah, there's just like a little pedal, like an individual pedal lift.
Yeah, a little pedal lift, but it has the space underneath that you can like mount, screw the screw in. Then you got to take the dual lock or the hook and loop or whatever you're using, and you need to like shimmy the pedal in. It's like fitting into like the suit you wear one time a year. You just got to like get into it,
and it always gets smaller, doesn't it?
It gets smaller every time, and you're just like,
especially if
this
you
isn't working.
Especially
if you blossomed. Especially, yeah, no, for sure. So like, and you got to like get it, but once you get in, then you take like. I have like these like plastic flathead screwdrivers to help like pop pedals off. I have to like slide in there to stick it up against the riser and stuff or whatever. So like there's all these little things you have to do just to make it work. And at that point you're just like, oh, just give me a Mondo or give me a Voodoo, like a Pedal Power 2 Plus or something that has the socket on it, and just let's call it a day. But yeah, it's all being creative.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's more of a hassle than anything. And I don't recommend keeping it off the board and
it's a real liability.
You break that EIAJ port, you're screwed.
EIAJ don't play. Yep. That's what they say.
You don't.
Brian,
that's what my tattoo says.
any remarkable Facebook queries that have come in that we want to chat about before we complete for today?
Someone asked, it's the good old buffer question. They always ask, what's the where is he at? He had asked about it. I had scrolled past it. A couple people asked about pedalboards.
Give us a good meaty one to end on today. Give us a really good one, Brian.
Oh. Oh man. A lot of these questions have all been answered.
I got one.
Shared. Oh, go ahead. Do
it.
Grant.
Do
it.
This is from Jonathan Gabby.
All right.
I'm saying your name right.
Okay.
He also asked a buffer related question, but I think
that was
this
the one I was
one's
looking for. That
I
was
think
what I
this
was
one
looking
might
for.
be even better. Just found out about Schmidt pedalboards.
Mm.
What does this group think about them? And then he goes on to explain some thoughts, but that's basically the crux of the question. Schmidt pedalboards,
Okay.
your thoughts?
Okay.
And I think that's it's probably not the meatiest, but I'd say we're kind of at you know, a 200-gram steak here. We could go, but it's satisfactory.
This is the one where if you eat it, they put your face on the wall.
No, at 200 grams, I mean, you know, that's just above a snack, but
Right.
it'll satiate the appetite here
Okay.
to finish the episode, I think.
Well, I,
I
I
mean,
think,
Brian probably has the most experience with
yeah,
Schmidt,
Brian,
but what do you think, Mason?
um,
um,
yeah,
I
Brian, you start us off.
to be as possible. Yeah, to be as polite as possible. I don't think I think they are a built board. Someone says it grossly overpriced. Yes, I think they are. It's hard. It's hard to say like something is overpriced because it's from a different country. So like they are pricing it based off of whatever the cost of their stuff is. I've been told by plenty of people, well, oh, your prices are too much. You're this. I can go get it cheaper done by this guy in this country. I'm like, well, the route you would like to take, I'm super respectful about it, but I'm like, every wherever you get it will be different. I've had a lot of people ask about these, and unfortunately, I had it was like a whole thing. It was actually with Ario Posen, which Grant, you guys built his little board. Um, that same board I had built when I was at the sanctuary, and um I shipped it to him and it was broken. It was all damaged. Stuff wasn't working. Like the sides were cracked. And it was just such a nightmare of a thing to have to deal with that like people were like, oh yeah, I buy an ATA road case to put my Schmidt in. And or I buy a Pelican case to put it in. And I'm like, at that point, for what you're paying, just go buy like I think I had one guy who wanted the smallest because I know Josh Smith uses them and he carries them on planes. He carries them on buses. Like he's not checking this stuff. One guy's like, I want the same concept. And we were able to build him a flatboard, custom sized flatboard with a custom hinged riser with mag latch and an ATA case. And I think it was only like 475, where that same board, if you would have got it from Schmidt, would have been 950 to 1100 before shipping and stuff. And it just was one of those things like for what you're getting out of it, I can do the same exact thing and we can have some more customized options. And when I got back one time to do the best we could to fix it, it was just was it's like the joints just weren't the best. It's just one of those things like I don't I don't know. After building guitar cabinets and doing dovetail joints and working in a wood shop and seeing how that kind of stuff is, it's like kind of like wooden dowels. Like it's like putting
Dowels.
IKEA furniture together where you like those little like pegs to like assemble the furniture and then you use the screw. That's kind of like what it felt like. And I had asked them a couple questions and they're gonna stand by their work and stuff, but I just felt like for the price it just doesn't make sense if you're not touring with it and it's staying at your house. Great, use it. If you have had luck using it, that's the thing, is if you had luck using it and you gig with it like Josh does, that's more power to you. I've just found them to be more inconvenient than anything because you have to go out one of the couple jack spots that they have and you have to use the two placements where the power is, and the junction boxes are all quarter-inch, but if you don't do quarter-inch, you have to pull it apart and mod it even just to do MIDI through. So there's just, without me rambling forever, I think there's more cons than there are pros to it. But again, it's just mine. It's the same
Mm.
thing like someone said with that we don't like temple boards. The temple plates, like that kind of stuff, like those are our experiences that we don't like them. If they work for you, that's great. But Schmidt boards, um, are definitely not one of, for the price.
Mm.
I could never justify it personally. So if you have anything to say or you want to get at me for that, feel free. But
Oh, it's
that's
coming, Brian. I
I'm
can
a
feel the fire.
I
Oh.
stand I stand on that foundation because the pedal board is the foundation to your
You
build.
are going to
And
get
if
an
you have a
array of
crappy,
shit.
I'm gonna get an array of Schmidt. So yeah, no, I would say that. And if you like them, fantastic. That's great. You probably also love tube screamers. I don't. That's just how it is.
You're throwing the tube screamer community under the
Fight
bus
me.
now.
Brian Brian's got
Fight
a
me.
trench and he is staying.
Send your grandma after me. Whatever you want to do. Put your dogs on me. I don't care. Let's go. But that's how I feel about it. I do them occasionally. It's just a whole thing.
I kind of like them. I mean, I would agree. I would agree that they are probably not for the touring musician, and they get heavy quick. So, if weight is a big concern, I wouldn't recommend a Schmidt array because it's not going to be the lightest board. But what I do like about them, when you think about the majority of guitar players, and the majority of guitar players that are not concerned about money, which would probably be people that are buying Schmidt array, and there's different people are mentioning this in the chat. There's different price brackets for people, and some customers come to me and like, money's not a problem. I want this, and we'll figure out the best way to get there. Most guitar players like that have a full-time job. They play at home because they love it and something beautiful. And Schmidt array will get you there. I've had other customers that have gotten a Schmidt array build and they receive it and like, this is, I didn't think this heavy. And so they are not that happy. And so I think you just have to be aware of what you're getting into. But if you want a beautiful board that sits in a room and you just love playing and you like that style of board, I don't have any issues with them. But I would not be their customer because I would be more conscious of price personally, and I just kind of like simpler boards. So I probably wouldn't buy one for myself, but we've built a few Schmidt array boards over the years, and the ones that turn out great, I think they look beautiful. Yeah, I ask a lot of questions. When someone asks me what board should I get, and I ask their, the top queries they're trying to address and the top things they're trying to really hit, if they aren't describing a Schmidt array board, I don't even bring it up. Go more towards traditional style pedal boards or a Vertex or a Creation or, that type of thing. So that's kind of where I sit on them. I'm probably a mix of Brian and a super fan. I'm somewhere in the middle.
Hey, it just makes me want to grill a panini. I'm just saying. I just want to
nice flat top.
Make a quesadilla.
Yeah. What about you, Mason?
How about you, Mason?
Yeah, I think that they are well built. I think that their biggest contribution is they kind of pioneered commercially the idea of kind of having these multi-tiered boards. And so I think that people like me who build boards like that, even though mechanically ours don't resemble what they're doing, they kind of they kind of paved the way. They were kind of the first guys out of the gate to do it on a commercial level. And so I think in that regard, they have my respect for doing it. I think that the challenge with their rig, and it's no surprise, we've already mentioned it, is that they are quite heavy, and I think that that's just kind of part of the construction. Like they're using wood. It is very high quality, and wood is heavy. And the idea of it, I think, looks really cool. Where like you can have your pedal board, you put this lid on it, and you lock it down, and it looks like it can go wherever you need to go. I think the reality is that if you're not in control of it, and you have to check it on an airline, and and it's leaving your hands and is going to be in sort of an unknown sort of handling situation, that there's a fairly easy calculation for inertia, and the more things weigh, the faster they're going to fall, and the more the sort of pounds per square inch of impact are going to be consequential. And so for that reason, they can be damaged if they take a hit. and because they weigh a lot, and there's not, in addition, there's not separate like foam in there other than this like the eggshell or egg carton foam that they put on the top. There's nothing that is shock mounting it fully, and so this is why people will need a case for the case. And so I can understand the redundancy seeming impractical from a professional standpoint, but we see, the Ariel Posens of the world. I don't think he's checking it. I think he's carrying it with him. And as you already mentioned with Josh Smith or Joey Landreth, I think that they're doing van tours
Yeah.
where they're in control of it. I think they may have a different
Yep.
perspective if they were flying it to different places and they were required to check it. It would be a little bit more of a concern. Um, but I don't even know if that's necessarily what Schmidt's market is. I think their market may be guys that are kind of like exactly what you were describing. And I don't think he has any problem selling
Yeah.
pedalboards because he does beautiful work, and I think that you can see that it's sort of the favorite of the pedal show and the gig rig, and there's tons of rigs that he's building with him, and so I think that gives increases his market size, and the people are doing it. So, I think it has its place. It's not again what
Yeah.
I would choose, and I think part of the reason why my pedalboards even have a market is because there are people that want those features but want it lighter. And so it's giving you some
Yeah.
aspects of the things that are really done well, and then it's giving you sort of some of the things that are great about having a flat board. And
Yeah.
all those things have assets, they have drawbacks too.
One
Yeah.
thing, one thing I will say quickly, and this just because I love highlighting companies that love their customer, is we did a board earlier this year, a big Schmidt array setup. FedEx lost, I think, a replacement lid that was sent over because we needed extra height because things changed, and so either way, we needed a lid. It wasn't Schmidt's fault; it was just a planning thing. FedEx lost the lid. We let Schmidt know, and without questions, a new lid was on the way, like right away. And they
Nice.
didn't push back. They didn't wait for any, like they just made sure
They
that the
didn't give
build
you any
happened.
Schmidt away.
They didn't give us any Schmidt, and it was awesome. And I was very impressed by that because I have had so many experiences where
Yeah.
the companies, they just have to wait for everything to go through with FedEx, and it takes months, if not longer. And by that point, the build is well done, and you can't ship it at that point. All this to say, the customer service has been exceptional from them,
That's
and
good.
I always, whether no matter what you feel about the company, I like highlighting when a company does right by the customer with very little fuss. And so
Yeah.
that's one thing I will say about them is
Mhm.
the customer service is great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do agree with that. I don't want to completely dog on Schmidt. I think they make really nice stuff. Just think from a practical standpoint, there's just some things that I wish it wouldn't do because it hinders. Because you get the people that like, they dream up their pedal board and they put every pedal that them and their second cousin's mother can think of on this pedal playground list, like mock up, and then I'm like, well, you have to account for power and when it closes, how much room is it underneath the close, like there's like just like little things like that. But from, yeah, no, I think they're great. Pivotal was another one, that was the one that you guys had did a board for, and that's the one that Joey has, and I saw it in person, and it's a really cool smart idea, him how small it is and how he says it literally could fit under his seat, but it pops out and it's more like a 18 by 13 whatever size board. So I think there's a lot of those really cool things. I just also think it comes down to like the more moving parts that you have on a board like that, things could wiggle off or screws could go loose, and then you can't tip it back because if I'm not wrong, the hinges on at least the Schmidt stuff are like cabinet hinges, are they? Aren't they like
Similar.
Yeah, I think it's
something like
cabinet
that?
related hardware.
Something like that. So there's just like little things like that, I think, especially like from a wiggle standpoint, because I've been doing more like touring rig things that I'm having to put like Loctite on stuff, and like, oh yeah, I'm so used to that stuff coming loose and stuff. So
Hmm.
but still, I still think they're a great board. They're still beautiful boards. I just think it's again, such a personal choice
Yeah.
thing. I don't typically recommend it, as it's just a headache for me.
All right.
Plus, you got to import it too, so it's the whole thing.
Well, guys, I
Indeed.
think we did our service. We did our tour of duty today in Tone, and want to thank everybody for being here, for being with us on this journey that we're taking to Tone Town. And again, the best way you can support us is by supporting our sponsors. Join us on the Facebook page. We are blossoming. We are growing every week. And supporting our sponsors, leaving us a review on Apple, leaving us a review on Spotify, wherever you listen. These are all things that are helpful and free to do and help us tremendously. So we appreciate that. We thank you in advance for doing that. We wish you all a happy new year, and we will see you next year in 2026.
See you guys.